All right, I think we shall kick it off. Hello, everyone. On behalf of the What Works Global Summit 2021, I'd like to welcome you to this special panel discussion on funding evidence for development. My name is Marie Gaarder, and I'm the Executive Director of 3IE, which is the International Initiative for Impact Evaluation. As you know, good quality development evidence is key to help ensure the best possible development programming and implementation, and thereby ensuring that lives are improved and also that no harm is done and that resources are not wasted on suboptimal policies and programs. I think and hope that we all agree on this. Key to this picture is, of course, that good evidence requires resources, and this is where funding and funders come in, and of course, the panel of today. So in the panel today, I will be asking panelists about factors that constrain or impede the funding and the use of the best evidence and how these can be overcome. I will be asking panelists about how they see their organization's role in supporting the generation and use of evidence for development, both at a local and at a global level. And I will also urge them to talk about their own organization's use of evidence in decision-making. And I'd like to structure this panel today as much as possible as an interactive session. So this means that I will open up for one or two questions or comments after certain sort of specific topics have been discussed. And I will notify you when that happens. And we will do that before moving on to the next topic. So in a sense, we won't have sort of one big Q&A at the end, but we'll sort of parcel it out and tackle different aspects. Some quick housekeeping notes is that preferably you should post your questions in the Q&A section on the side. If anybody, I do not think any of the panelists are sharing slides. I haven't gotten to all of them, but if you do, please share in the slides in full mode so that they're more visible. With that preamble, I'm very happy to present today's panelists. So we have with us Hélène Djoufelkit, who is Director Economic Analysis and Public Policy at Agence Française de Développement, AFD. So welcome, Hélène. Then we have Daniel Ortega, who is the Director of Impact Evaluation and Policy Learning and Vice President at the Development Bank of Latin America, also known as CAF. So welcome, Daniel. And then we have Franco Conzato, who is Deputy Head of Unit, Results and Evaluations, DG INTPA, which you may want to explain to us afterwards what it is, at the European Commission. There is a fourth panelist who I hope will be joining us soon. That is Rabah Arezki, who is the Chief Economist and Vice President, Economic Governance and Knowledge Management at the African Development Bank. With this, I'd like to start with the first question, which in fact, all the panelists will get just a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes to address in turn. And it's the following. So how do you see your organization's role in supporting the generation and use of evidence for development, including the local and global development research agenda? And in your answer, if you could also talk about what each of you refer to when you talk about evidence, and what is it that you fund as part of funding evidence. Let me start with you, Hélène.
Thank you very much, Marie, and thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be part of this panel. So as you said, I'm working at the French Development Agency. So basically, my department is producing knowledge, and producing knowledge is really important for the agency. We consider it as a priority to understand the countries where we are intervening. So for us, evidence is really twofold. Is evidence ahead of the project we are financing. This is what we are doing before financing the activity. So we are really having a lot of research program, having in mind to either document the mechanism of sustainable development challenges. So this is much more theoretical research on different topics. We are really focusing in AFD on climate change, social cohesion or social link. Inequality is really a big part of our activities, and thanks to the EU, because we have a lot of delegation of funds for that. I would say all the twofold of sustainable development. This is growth and social development and ecological development. Really, we are committed to that. The second part is really to document context analysis. It's really important to understand the countries where we are intervening. So we are making a lot of research concerning sectoral approach, economic context, social context, actors, game, so as to prepare ourselves in fine-tuning or financing, fine-tuning our operation. So this is ahead of the project. Then we have evidence after, and this is our evaluation department. It's my colleague. She's not here today, but I can echo what they are doing. So evaluation is really important. We have a lot of ambition on evaluation. I have to confess that for many years we were lagging behind this agenda. We are putting a lot of emphasis on this, and basically we intend to finance approximately 70 evaluation per year. That is to say almost 50% of our project. We are progressing on that, and we are financing project evaluation. We are financing extensive evaluation, a group of project or strategy, and we are financing scientific evaluation. And then to promote evidence, we are also financing dissemination through review, through webinars. So we are investing a lot in knowledge sharing. I think it's what all the institutions are doing, but we really want to promote the research that is done by our local researcher. I will come back on that in another question, but it's important to disseminate the research results through publication, international publication, but also locally through a webinar, being able to have dialogue between North and South researchers. So this is really important to have the three approach: ahead of the project, after of the project, and dissemination. I will stop there for now. Thank you.
Excellent. Very much to you for giving that quick, broad overview. Daniel, let me ask you next.
Did you say Daniel?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm sorry, my camera is off. I turned it off because my connection is not good. So please stop me if you stop hearing me as well.
Okay.
I'll be brief. I'm very happy to participate in this panel. I think it's quite important that we all sort of share a little bit of our views to see, how funding agencies can find ways of collaborating and finding some common work agendas. So the way that we do, remember that we are a development bank. So being a bank, we have lending, right? And we're not 100% dedicated to funding research so most of our activities are built around the financial services that we provide to countries in the region. So that's one big piece of it, and that's going to have to do with the discussion a little bit later about how do we integrate evidence in that process. And so that's really important, but it connects to to this question, which is, the way we see our role is to support capacity building in the public sector in many dimensions, in not only producing evidence, but also being able to understand, to interpret it, and to use it. And for this purpose, we also see ourselves having a role in promoting the collaboration between the public sector and academic institutions and think tanks and other kinds of institutions that produce and interpret evidence. And so as part of that question, what is evidence for us? Well, we all like a well-identified, impact evaluation. So that's certainly there at sort of the top of our list is rigorous causal identification studies. But we are very much aware that there are many institutions that are not capable of producing highly sophisticated research agendas because sometimes they don't have a good understanding of the theory of change of their policies. And so we see ourselves in having a role in trying to go further back in the capacity building process and trying to help institutions have some capacity to better understand their own processes, better understand what data they could gather and how they could analyze it, and try to sort of do a little bit of hand-holding in the process, that would eventually culminate in an organization, producing rigorous evidence and using it and all that. But that's like a very few institutions in the world, I think, actually can do that. Most institutions are very, very coarse in the way they learn about their day-to-day activities. And so to us, even sometimes descriptive studies are also very useful and valuable evidence. Okay, so our understanding or use of evidence is generally reserved for rigorously identified causal studies, but more generally we do sort of use it and promote the production of more basic kind of studies that can shape a conversation or shed light on a particular issue, especially for diagnostic. This is very important, and it's very important in the capacity building world as well. Basically, like looking at a map with descriptive data on how crime is distributed over territory, for example, is in itself very educational for the institution that should be looking at it. So is this rigorous evidence? Well, descriptive evidence. Is it useful evidence? It is, very much. And it's useful for understanding the problem, identifying potential solutions, and of course for capacity building, which is, I think, the key role that we see ourselves playing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thanks for adding those elements as well around the role of capacity building and the role as well of sort of various types of evidence being useful at various to inform various types of decisions and in the process. I think that's an excellent point. Let me turn straight over to you, Franco.
Thank you, Marie, and thanks first of all for this invitation. I must say we don't have many occasions to debate about this topic. DG INTPA, that's how we call it, but is before 6 months ago we were called with another name. More Development Cooperation was our name in the Commission. Now INTPA stands for International Partnership, just to, let's say, make sure that we finally go out of the a certain kind to describe our relation. And in that part, I would say evidence play an important role, which is also for us, I wouldn't say new, but the emphasis is certainly new. By evidence, really, we mean that we are able to show in a more substantial way what we really achieve in the ground with the action that we fund. And just today is a special day for me because apart from being a member of this panel, we had our management discussing our new tool, which is a tool that we use to do the reporting of the results, of operational results. So meaning, not just report how much money we put in a sector or in a country, but what we have really achieved. And it was because of this experience that we move a bit closer with the possibility really to look into the impact, let's say the assessment parts. And therefore, we came very close to the issue of using a research approach compared to more a descriptive one that we normally use in our reports. In our reports, we have a narrative and a description of a number of data, but by moving into new tools, research become a very important aspect. Also because it tried to, let's say, come with a kind of neutral view, and for that point of view being, let's say, both transformational, but also with a higher possibility to influence policy decision. We have seen very much, and I think in all our organization, that at the start, we have, a kind of important declaration on if you look at the SDGs, these are important objectives that we fix for ourselves, but they are very, in a way, inspirational or aspirational, let's say. That's the word that we use. But then when you go to the ground and you try to reflect, which a more closer measure, sometimes you may be a bit, if not upset, let's say not entirely satisfied, a bit disappointment on what you're able to do. And this is very important for our organization, who spent quite important and sizable amount of money overall. We talk about, anything between 6, 7 and 10 billion euros per year in funding development cooperation activities. What is the part that we give to research? Before coming to the panel, I was taking a look at the DAC codes, the codes that define, we are still in how much money we put there. And we have several research. We have agricultural research, environmental research, and all this. So I didn't have really the time to add up all of them. We have also one code just which is basically when you don't know where to put it, you put it there. So I didn't have the time to put it up and check at the numbers. But it's clear that there we have a bit of work to do if we want really to push this agenda further. I think we have a microphone open with some background noise. Voila, thanks. But if we take what we put in statistics, which is very closer to that, these are sizable amount, and overall, also we talk about several. So I think it's in the order of between 14 and 50 million euro per year that the donor community spend on that. So how much of this is really research, I cannot tell. But I'm sure that an important part can be really identified if there is an important element that we need to find out if this, I would say, very important initiative that you are pushing will really make his way through the donors. As far as we are concerned, I think, as I said, we still have a bit of ground to cover. Our ideas, but then I think we will have a possibility to talk during the panel, is really to invest immediately. Let's say since we have quite an EU platform, with think tanks, university, research institutions that can really help on this. This will be one of our focus, let's say, to try to move something along, as Hélène was saying, to global priorities, climate change, I would say even the digital transformation, and I will add human development, with important implication, particularly with the COVID on health and education. And later, last but not least, the growth and the job creation component, which for us is very important because it's part of, let's say, the ambition, let's say, of the EU to make sure that we are able to manage, what for us has been an important program, which was the what we call the migration issues, and let's say this is a little bit what. Sorry, we are, and on this is where we will probably focus some of our activities, and last but not least, looking for really into this international partnership. That this is one for me very important opportunity, and we are having discussion also with the World Bank on that, because one of the tools, as recall, are really to move the evaluation into more impact evaluation. This is not applicable for all, but where we can apply that for us is an area where I think we can have some interesting opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And before we go on, I just want to ask the organizers, because I see we're not too many, and I think it would be nice if you can make sure that all the people, all the audience actually can have access and ask questions themselves when we get there. So I'm telling you now so that you have a few minutes to get that organized when I start opening the mic. But thanks. I think it's one interesting thing that is coming out of what you all three panelists are talking about as well is sort of this need for collaboration across funders, and I think that's very, very interesting, and we might be able to dive deeper into that. And I think all of you have picked on issues that we now will get into in some more depth. Just double checking whether the fourth panelist happens to have come on board, and Rabah, Arezki.
He is on medical leave, so not able to join.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure I'd given him the chance in case. Okay, well then that gives the rest of us a bit more time. Let's then start with this issue of how your agency that you're representing ensures that existing evidence is used when determining future lines of programming and funding. And this is something, and what I'm talking about here is, so for example, when you make decisions in your organization, to what extent are at these decision meetings, for example, is it asked about, why are we doing this? What is the evidence that this is going to work? On what basis are we moving forward on this? That kind of sort of questioning of incentives and signaling, etc. And what can be done in terms of processes and incentives potentially to increase the use of evidence in your organization? I guess it's a leading question. It's probably based on a bias of mine that I've worked in several organizations where I think there was room for improvement. But great if you can elucidate when it comes to your organization. So let me start with you, Daniel, on that.
Okay. Well, we are, as I said before, a development bank, and so a lot of our activity is demand-driven. So what we do is we try to available to the discussion around a financial product, and that usually will help, depending on what stage of the early on in the design of a particular project that is being financed by us, then we bring to bear some of the best evidence that is available, and we incorporate that in, try to have it, influence the design of the particular. Oh, can you hear me?
We have a little trouble. You're a bit interrupted.
I'm sorry. I just can't do anything about it because my connection is what it is.
Please go ahead now. I think it's we got most of it so far.
Okay. So, and I think that in terms of incentives within the organization, what you need to do is to make it part of the process to show people who are working in the organization using and informing processes with evidence increases the operational outcomes of the organization. And so, and this is like, we strive to help public institutions become better at learning at what they do, but we try also to walk the talk, to do this ourselves as well, and that's not always easy, especially in a development bank that has a certain tradition of doing things in a certain way, and that, as I said in the beginning, demand driven by the operational lending is mostly, of course, it's part of a conversation, a discussion that occurs between the organization and governments, but it's also very much demand driven. And so how can you build into that kind of culture an evidence informed process? And I think it's a evidence informed decision making process, and I think that's a challenge. And we've tried to do our part, both in supporting the operational part of the organization, but also internally. And so we, for example, have done experiments inside the organization and trying to illustrate how using evidence for making small decisions within the organization can actually lead to better outcomes. And we've done like little things in the cafeteria. We've done things in with respect to communication strategies that have helped us be effective. And so I think there's a capacity building component within the organization as well, because knowledge management is a big challenge within any organization. And I think that we also need to try to become the kind of learning institution that we hope public institutions will be. And so there's part of this should be to also change the internal process in the organization so that people have the incentives to do this kind of work and to use the best available evidence in the decision making that they undertake internally, and that they bring it, and so that they also bring it to their counterparts in the public sector.
So I think, thanks, Daniel. And I think, as you very rightly said, I think it's a great point that there's we need to walk the talk, so to speak, and that I think in most organizations there's still some way to go there. I wonder whether in development banks like yours, etc., the client is, of course, believes partly it's not only the financing that they're getting, that they believe they're getting the knowledge. So you could foresee a situation where it didn't work. You know, why do we have to repay you? It didn't work. You didn't give us the best evidence. You could create very harsh incentives that way. It's of course you know, long way to go, but you'd think that, you know, it's a package of financing and knowledge that they're getting.
Yes, absolutely. That's the idea. Certainly, that's the idea, and we're trying to get better at it. I think all of development banks are now realizing that we either do that or we're, you know, there's no reason for our existence, because most countries, especially some of the better behaved countries, you know, they have access to cheap lending, and so the value added of doing things with organizations such as ours is actually whatever knowledge you can bring to the table.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you. And Hélène, what's your take on this issue?
Sorry, I put the mic on. Yeah, to us, evidence for development is really part of increasing the impact of our operation. And we really try to liaise, you know, the researcher on one side, evaluator on one side, with the project officer in the institution. And this is a big challenge, by the way, because we are also a development bank. So we are a bank. We are driven by the commitment we are financing to clients. And it's not easy to be considered as useful when you are a researcher. So we have really to convince that research, evaluation, capitalization is important. So it's a long way ahead. I have to say that the research department is quite new in the AFD. It started in 2002, so it's almost a teenager. I mean, more, but we had a lot of progress. So now we are really trying to put together both teams. How? So basically, when we are structuring a study, we are building a steering committee, and we are inviting project officer in the steering committee of the study. It's very important to have them on board, so as they appropriate the results and can to use them afterwards. Comparatively, alternatively, when the project officer are building a project, we try to design research components. It's really now an important part of the research design. I didn't talk about the amount we are financing. If we are putting all together, the AFD is financing almost 30 million euros research per year, accounting for strictly research on the academic side and operational research integrated in projects, so which it is really important. So really liaising the research with operation is an important things to do, and it's not, again, it's not easy because it's not in the incentive of every project officer to do that. So it will be one of my takeaways for improving the things. The second thing is that research is also contributing to build strategies. We have a lot of social strategy, sustainable development strategy, country strategy, and we need to feed as well those strategies. So here again, we are entering into discussion with the other part of the institution to really have those results be known by them and integrated in the strategy. And it's easy to say, but it's not easy to do because it's a lot of time to be spent. So this is the second thing. I have a third thing is that really we are putting together publication around capitalization. So the evaluation team is drafting a capitalization report on certain topic. So starting from a lot of evaluation, they are really trying to summarize and to draw the benefits of each of those evaluations. So have to have capitalization for one or several sectors. So those capitalization work are published, and it is really important to be part of the project design. And finally, we are organizing some kind of meeting, gathering researcher, project officer, and policymaker. It's really important as well to be on the policy side. I will tackle this topic in the other question, all the question of co-constructing and feeding the public policy of the clients with research. But this is an important point, and it is really important to make the effort to translate the research results, which are often academics published in academic review or in working paper, into policy brief or policy paper, or some kind of document reachable by policy makers. What we know is that now financing is important, but non-financing is important as well. Advisory, capacity building, it has been said, is really important, and all this use of evidence participate to this agenda. Thank you.
Excellent. No, an excellent point that you ended on. I think that's very fair to say that the non-financing part is equally and sometimes more so important, or at least if it comes together, it's a very powerful combination.
And I forgot one point. Sorry,
yeah.
Just to do to push further. I would advocate to put the non-financing and the research part of the project cycle. We have a kind of project cycle at the AFD. I think almost all of the institutions have this kind of project cycle. Research is not part of the project cycle because it's not considered as a financing activity. But to us, we are really playing to integrate this part of the activity into the project cycle because it contributes to promote effectiveness and impact at the end. And evaluation could be as well in the project cycle ex post as really the takeaways, and the project is not finishing when the commitment and the disbursement are over. So it's something.
And maybe just to ask you, I mean, so it makes total sense, and it's almost surprising that it's not. Or so how do we get there? Who needs to make that decision in your organization?
It's a collective decision. I mean, valorization and evaluation right after, completion report is part of the project, but, impact afterwards is not really part of the project cycle. I think this part is now a little bit, it moves forward, but ahead, when we are talking about research, it's definitely not part of this project cycle. It's considered as parallel activity. And this is true. This is parallel activity because we are starting research before entering into the instruction of a project, for instance. But at the end of the day, those research are contributing to the impact and the quality of the project design. And when I say project, it could be an investment project, but also a policy program. It's in a broad sense. And this is a collective decision, but we need to go step by step and to demonstrate the utility of our research. When you have research only dedicated for academic, we are not a research center. We are kind of inner think tank dedicated to promote activities and development projects, both internally and for our clients. And we need to be good enough to be seen, considered as useful. So it's really a question of positioning and demonstrating the utility of what we are doing. And it's long to build because research is a long-term program. When you are undertaking a research, it's 3 years, and so step by step. But I think we are moving forward.
Excellent. Now I'm going to turn to you, Franco, and we're gonna have to speed things up a bit. I realized, even though we're less in the panel, this is so exciting. I'm just wanted to check. You had actually even done some of the calculations. So if you could talk about, who is it that decides how much of the funding goes to development interventions versus development research and evaluation in your organization? Like, what's the good mix? And in your personal opinion, if possible, what do you think the current allocation and so on is good? Is it optimal?
Well, as we are now, what you may say in an organization like ours goes to research. Well, first of all, we don't have, strictly speaking, a research unit. Our unit deals with evaluation, monitoring, and then we put the word results because of the reporting that we do. And but we are also responsible for knowledge management. This gives us a bit of a chances to promote, let's say, what we can call an evidence agenda, which we actually have, although it's on an infant stage. And the way we look at it is we work at two levels. Through the evaluation, we have what we call strategic evaluation. These are big undertakings done at country level or at sector level in a multiple country dimension, and the project evaluation. So we are trying, let's say now, to see what could be a balance for the two, and make sure that part of this money is not just to fulfill, I would say, what is an institutional requirements by any organization spending public money. So to be able to account what we do, but as well to move a little bit into the frontier. So this is not evident. I mean, you have really to do it, and the way we are trying to do that is again put the emphasis on pushing a little bit our reasoning and say we really know, to get really close to the final impact, and this is challenging. It's challenging in terms of methodology because you cannot just be satisfied with some narrative, a few numbers, but you must be able really to use, in our case, we are now testing the possibility to use new technology. As a matter of fact, we are really looking into a study that we actually learned in a seminar with other institutions where actually GDN was there and the European Investment Bank was there, in using, for instance, the blockchain to make sure that we are able to build a database through which we can ask beneficiary to report on the results. And this we hope is quite promising. And this is still an idea. I cannot confirm that we will go, but it's an idea with getting interest from us. So that's one example. How all this influence decision? Well, since the system is oriented to the country level and the global level, we have different sets of decisions. So I think we are relatively confident that the knowledge that we will able to create through, let's say, a better and luckily more important investment in research, we really inform our colleagues on our decision process at project level. On global level, this there is a lot of course, other possibility to do that. Even though in some area we don't know much. I mean, just let me give you an example. One of our important policy objective, for instance, for Africa, is to see how to tackle youth unemployment. But who is really there with some really important knowledge about how you built up a successful program in favoring jobs for the youth? And these are an area where we are really now again piloting the possibility of use research work to inform, later on, either other pilots or even bigger intervention, because this is basically our challenge. How to scale up something that we have been able to test with data like this. Fortunately, in the EU, we have centers who can help. We don't work alone. As I mentioned, the European Investment Bank. We have the Joint Research Center who did a lot of work for Europe. But the challenge in developing countries is much different in terms of data quality, data availability. So that's the area which we are really looking in. But I can be relatively optimistic. I think that good work with that kind of, let's say, that kind of side, not to be too much academic, but with really a link to operation, do really attract, senior managers and policy and political masters. And I think if we are able then to put it in the right circuit to be known, that can start to make an impact. Voila.
I think we have lost Mary.
Yes. Yeah, I was trying to be brief because we were told that we want to have some space.
Sure, yeah.
But I think this was really, in essence, what I wanted to share with you. And in terms of allocation, I think, yes, of course, the majority of the funds goes to our program for evaluation and monitoring reports. But we try really to increase what we call, evidence for impact. This is something that we are really much working on.
I don't know whether there are some questions while we are. So I think Ramona is coming back.
There are some questions in the chat. If you want to take any of them, there are a couple targeted at you, Hélène.
Q&A chat. Sorry, I was in the Q&A. Sorry, I didn't see all the. Which one are the one of the generate ex-ante and ex-post evidence to meet evidence knowledge? What extent do you all see the local production at evidence? Yeah, this is a very important question. I think it will be one of the questions we will be asked afterwards. The role of of our partner in this evidence producing. I can try to answer this question. So Mary, you were ejected from the chat, and we were picking some questions.
Excellent. Yeah, I was thrown out. Go ahead.
And there is one of the question that makes the transition, if you allow me, to the question with the partners, that's how. So if I answer this question, maybe I can as well answer your question. So yeah, to us, it's really important to put the partners at the center of the evidence of the first of the topic priorities, and then of the process of producing research or producing evidence. And again, when we are telling this, it's not easy to do. When we started to produce research at the AFD, we were only doing research from France or with partners at the World Bank or the EU, or the peer partners. But now for 4 years, we have put in place a research strategy, putting the southern researchers at the center of the research design and research priorities. That is to say that we are not producing any research on Africa, Latin America, Asia without a local researcher. It is really important to co-construct this research agenda, to co-construct this evidence agenda, so as to be appropriate. Otherwise, it's not appropriate. And to us, it's really important internally, as I said earlier, to put the evidence inside the project design. But in the field, it's really important to put the research into policy action, so as to have a public policy based on evidence. And we are very knowledgeable now at the AFD on certain topics, for instance, of modelizing the transition, the ecological transition, so assessing the impact of energetic transition, social transition on employment, on assets. So we are really designing all this with our partner. We call them clients, but here, as researcher, we are calling them partner. And doing this, we are also promoting capacity building. We work extensively with GDN, I have to say, because it's really important to strengthen capacities. We consider that the better advocacy to be made for public policy has to be done through a local think tanker. And to do that, we need to promote their capacity, both financial capacity through core funding, if we can do that, or through standards, improving the academic standards, improving the way to be visible, to write a good article. So we are promoting young researchers through doctoral school, etc., etc. So this is really important. Doing with having capacity building, so as to link really the research result to public policy, and in disseminating as well the results is really important to give the chance to have this crossed eyes and this cross debate, this policy dialogue areas where we can discuss from the north, the south with the south, and this arena of discussion. It's really important to create this arena of discussions through seminar, through meetings, through this kind of conference. And yeah, it's really important. And I consider that if I have one takeaway of this, it's really doing with and doing with and for our partners. Thank you.
Excellent. And just to see here a comment from Pierre Jacquet online saying, reinforcing also what you just said, Hélène. He thinks that investing in the local production and analysis of evidence is a very powerful way to build capacity, not only producing evidence, but about really establishing a culture of evidence-informed thinking. So I think that's an excellent point. In our last few minutes, I'd like to change tack a little bit because there's a couple of other questions that are also dear to me. One is, and I'll direct this at you, Daniel. One of the things at 3IE, we're sort of recently been considering looking at a lot of requests for proposals from various funders. And what we note is a huge variation in the quality of these. Often we see RFPs with very unrealistic and insufficient resources and/or timelines, and sometimes a lack of understanding even of the different types of evaluations and what type of questions they can really answer. And because the funder sets the terms of reference, a potential bidder is not sort of very much in a bargaining position when questioning the terms of reference during a competitive bidding process. So what do you think funders can do to improve the terms of reference such that the right questions can be asked with an appropriate methodology, budget, and timeline?
Well, thank you for that question. I think it's really relevant, especially given the heterogeneity that we observe in the quality of institutional capacity for learning in our countries. We too were faced with a similar challenge. We have an open RFP every year where public institutions pose a question, an evaluation idea that they would like us to support them with. And it is geared to public institutions, not academic institutions. And so sometimes they partner up with an academic institution to make the proposal, but most of the times they don't. And so they seek our technical and financial support for this process. And so, of course, we found ourselves over the years selecting those proposals that were of the best quality technically. So the best data, the best possibility for doing an experimental evaluation. So ultimately, research paper ultimately. And realized that this was really unfair because this is cream skimming. I mean, the institutions that were able to actually have great proposals were already the best ones. They're already the ones that had, processes in place, really high quality, like really highly trained human capital that understood the evidence, that were able to read papers, that were able to, and so we were leaving all these other institutions behind. So we took a year off to think about this, and this year, in our call for proposals, we decided to lower the bar. And what does lower the bar in the sense of not seeking to have high quality impact evaluations alone. So we said, so ultimately what we did was, so we went through this process and we selected, instead of selecting like 5 or 6 institutions, we selected almost 40. But we selected them for different buckets of services, so to speak. So the top quality, again, of course, high quality institutions, really good proposals, great data, great processes. Those were 6, and those were selected for impact. That would get, for example, 5 hours of personalized advice on how to better design their thinking and their design of this policy and the data collection that they needed. And then there was another, or for example, or having a better diagnostic process for the deciding on the policy, because sometimes you would have proposals for evaluating policies that had really no bearing for the problems at hand, like no relation to the specific problems that they were supposedly tackling. And so when you pose these questions to people, so where's the diagnostic that leads you to this solution? And they wouldn't have one, or they didn't know how, what the internal logic of the program was that connected the problems that they were dealing with the specific solution that was proposed. So then we have another group that we're doing theory of change workshops with. And so that's another sort of product that we are delivering. And so then there's another group with whom we're proposing to do an institutional learning capacity diagnostic. So we have like a survey and interviews with the institution about what their processes are, what the data how aligned the leadership is with using data, et cetera. And so we have a diagnostic that is a learning capacity diagnostic, and then we give that to them and say, look, you have strengths in this, your weaknesses in this area, and then you can think about where you need to develop your capabilities. And so that's also a product in itself, a diagnostic about the institution's capabilities for learning. And so basically what we did is we expanded our product, the products that we're offering these institutions. And this is our first year yet doing it, and we're delivering the products right now as we speak, like over these months and up until, it'll go through next year, depending on each institution, because the time frame varies, and it will vary for the impact evaluations also. So that was basically our response. We said, we are leaving behind the weakest institutions. We need to think about a way of providing services that are relevant to the weaker institutions as well, because otherwise our own process is just going to increase, reinforce the inequality that we observe across institutions within a given country. So that was basically our response to this. And I'll stop so that other people have a chance to.
No, that's fantastically interesting, and it's almost a very different, in a sense, a very opposite situation almost of what I was referring to, because you're in a sense in the situation of writing the RFPs, and then in the situation of being able to train and identify areas to strengthen these institutions. But what if the one that needed strengthening was your organization, and you are the one with the money? That's the side of the question that partly I'm also talking about, and I don't know if any others in the panel have any view on that. How would you take feedback if the RFP that you are writing not seen as really realistic or answering the right question. How would people who want to do the work for you interact with you? Any views on that?
That was for me as well.
Yes,
you got sort of cut off for me a little bit.
One question I have for you, Ramon. I had this until 5 o'clock, but you're saying it's already supposed to finish, correct? Is that the understanding? This should wind down exactly now? Because yes, okay. So then I will actually ask you each to come with one, give you a floor to give one recommendation for improving funding evidence for development. Just one-liner for each of you to wrap up this excellent and wide discussion we've been having, with some technical difficulties on several of us, unfortunately. Let me start with you, Franco. One recommendation to improve funding evidence for development.
So basically, it's a self-recommendation. Look, I think this was my experience. In any organization, you have to build up a case for that. First, you have to realize that this is important, and then a case must build up. We built up the case, let's say, making sure that we wanted to push our, let's say, ability to see what was happening much beyond, let's say, the big policy objective and let's say the global level. So going really at the country level. So this approach, as we say, country and policy first, is what we are trying also to apply in our programming. And there, the evidence approach, I think, has a great chance to be perceived at the highest level and be considered. This was, in any way, our experience, and what allow us, let's say, to basically secure some funding to go along this line. Let me just make a quick remark. I very much agree with reading at the points debated, the importance of the capacity building at local level. I mean, we cannot really just fund research in an abstract sense. On the other hand, we have to be realistic. Realistic means, we are now moving along. We have some technology that allow us to really expand the possibility to collect data, to design indicators with a much higher frequency than before, and to really increase, I would say, the quantitative part in our studies. So all this, I don't think we have a natural balance. It has to be worked out, and it has to be thought. Speaking from the viewpoint of view and how is our system, let's say, more or less designed, in that sense, the direct contact with our colleagues at working at country level, we have, delegation who are, we work in a decentralized base, so they have responsibility, is very important. So if one message I can share with you is, we have to work not just on the headquarters, but we are really making sure that we are able to interest colleagues at country level. Of course, I'm talking from a donor point of view. So think tanks, researcher, and so on, they will really have to structure this dialogue, let's say, in both ways, to having in mind the headquarters, but also having in mind what's happening at country level, and I think there are chances. There are chances really to make sure that funding for research is really, becoming a concrete and visible feature in our portfolio. Let's put it like that.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. Super important point. Thank you very much. Hélène, over to you. Last takeaway.
Thank you very much. So I would say that I have two, if you allow me. The first is really to make sure that producing evidence is really part of a mandate and part of the project cycle of Development Bank. I have said that, and I really insist on that because it's not direct. And the second was I joined Franco that the partners countries should be at the center of this process. You know, there is a book in France written by a French anthropologist based in Niger called the Context Revenge. If we are not knowing properly the context, if we are not working together with people, really knowing deeply, locally what happens, who are the actors, what are the mentalities, I mean, we won't succeed in having any impact locally. So it's really important to liaise with local researcher, local think tanker, in producing knowledge, in disseminating and reaching public policies, reaching you know, the policy makers. So really, I would end on this note because we are moving a little forward step by step, but it's not automatic. It's linked with the way we have to choose as well, you know, the possibility to choose the researcher we want to work with. We have the opportunity to do that at the AFD because we can have some research agreement on that, and it's really important to promote somehow the 1,000 research. And I encourage very much the GDN to do so and to pursue its really important mission. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And there's a comment from Ramona on the side here on some relevant GDN programs, just as you were talking, Hélène, so just referring everyone to that as well. Daniel, you get to add any third recommendation?
Yeah, well, of course, I agree with local partner involvement in the research, in the definition of the research question. This is central to both capacity building and ultimate buy-in into the results of our own strategy as well. The one thing that I think would be really great if we could have more collaboration at the level of funders is in evidence translation. I think that the available evidence out there is just and let's just for the moment talk about or use the definition of you know, causal evidence on the effectiveness of specific policies, okay, across all areas. The abundance of evidence is quite significant. 3IE has, you know, what I think is the best repository, which we use extensively, and they try to keep it, you know, updated as much as possible of the new existing studies that come out on different topics, and they, you know, producing evidence maps also. But we really need to make this accessible to non-English speaking, you know, parts of the world. And so I think we need to work on translating this into other languages, but also into taking all of this into the next level, which is what we call, or what are called, evidence portals. And I know, well, Howard and with this group of people at Howard White, I mean, at Settle have written up a guideline for, you know, some standards that that quality evidence portals should follow. So there's a discussion about, you know, how do we, these evidence portals are really nice because they're very simple, visually attractive websites where you can find, you know, the best available information on the effectiveness of certain policies that you might be considering. So this should be, this is a global good. So it doesn't make sense. Economies of scale. So it doesn't make sense for the What Works network in the UK to go at it alone, and then the US going at it alone, and then in the different places just doing this separately. I think that the ideal would be to have one single place where we all collaborate, where we all pitch in, and we can actually make this much better, up to date in all languages, and searchable by region, and so I just think that there's a huge opportunity there for international organizations to collaborate. That was my final comment. I wish we could do that.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. Those are excellent comments from all three of you. Just let me highlight them. The first being around the country focus, putting the partners at the center. The second one being around evidence being an integral part of project cycle. And the third area is around collaboration across funders and in the evidence landscape, especially around this issue of evidence translation, evidence portals. And I think those are just extremely important takeaways. Final pitch then is also to say that beyond the earlier repository, indeed the 3IE does have the largest development evidence portal on international development, and we are currently doing sort of help desk services, for example, for our West Africa program. So I do think this is one area where we could do much more, also in other languages, and it already exists, and we invested in it for 12 years. So and it has recently been updated to have about over 9,000 impact evaluations, and being searchable also by interventions and by outcomes. So there will be further information about this, but I think it goes quite a long way towards what you're asking for, Daniel, except we can soon not finance it anymore unless funders come in. So there's my pitch to having some funders online today. Anyway, thank you so much to all of you for going for the panel, and everybody who participated. We got some questions online, some hiccups, but I think overall an excellent exchange with excellent panelists, and I hope this keeps you all communicating also off this panel. Thank you again, and you can find the rest of the conference schedule. You can find out about it if you go to reception. So thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.